The emergency lights bathed the control room in a pulsing red glow. Jisoo Park's fingers trembled as she replayed the distress signal for the third time. Each replay made it no less horrifying. Earth was under attack, and losing badly. 38 seconds, she whispered. That's all we got before they cut transmission. Commander Taeho Kim stood behind her, his shadow long against the dimly lit command center of Proxima Centauri IA's mining colony. Outside the reinforced windows, the rust-colored landscape stretched to the horizon, dotted with excavation equipment and prefabricated shelters. The colony housed just over 600 humans, most of them miners and their families, a tiny outpost of humanity 80 trillion kilometers from the catastrophe unfolding on their homeworld. "Show me the visuals again," Kim ordered, his voice steady despite the panic clawing at his insides. Jisoo tapped several controls, and the main screen filled with chaotic footage. The transmission had come from Earth's Orbital Defense Command. The camera shook violently as explosions rocked the station. A military officer, her face streaked with blood, shouted into the camera over the blaring of alarms. "This is Colonel Maya Santos of Earth Defense Command. The Arvani Collective has launched a full-scale assault across all major population centers. Our defense grid is failing. We need immediate." The message cut off in a burst of static. Kim's weathered face remained impassive, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped the back of Jisoo's chair. At 53, he had spent more than half his life in military service before taking this supposedly quiet assignment overseeing security for a mining operation. "The Arvani," he said, the name sounding like a curse. "We've had peaceful contact with them for nearly 40 years. Jisoo pulled up the colony's database file on the alien species. The image showed tall, chitinous beings with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected light in iridescent patterns. According to the file, the Arvani Collective controlled 17 star systems and was considered a major but non-aggressive power in this sector of the galaxy. "Why would they attack without warning?" she asked. There were no signs of hostility in any diplomatic channels. Kim began pacing the small command center, his mind racing through possibilities. The Arvani are logical to a fault. They wouldn't attack without a reason, at least not one that makes sense to them. The door to the command center slid open with a pneumatic hiss as Security Chief Dae-Won-yoon entered. His uniform was rumpled, suggesting he'd dressed in haste after being awakened. "I came as soon as I got your message," he said. "Is it true? Earth is under attack." Kim nodded grimly and gestured toward the screen where the distress call still played on loop. "The Arvani Collective has launched what appears to be an extermination campaign." Dae-Won watched the footage, his expression darkening. "But the Arvani are scientists and traders. Their military is defensive, not designed for this kind of assault." "Apparently, we were wrong," Kim replied. Jisoo pulled up the colony's long-range sensor data, which showed unusual activity across nearby systems. "Sir, I'm detecting Arvani vessels changing course. 3 scout ships that were in the Ta Ceti system are now on a direct heading toward us." Kim's jaw tightened. "They're tying up loose ends, eliminating all human outposts." "We should evacuate," Dae-Won suggested. "We have enough transport ships tow." "And go where?" Kim interrupted. "If they've hit Earth with everything they have, they'll be targeting every human settlement. Running means dying tired." The 3 of them fell silent, the gravity of their situation settling over them like a shroud. The mining colony had minimal defenses, a few point defense turrets designed to destroy incoming asteroids, not repel a military assault. Jisoo suddenly straightened in her chair. "The Lazarus Protocol," she said, her voice barely audible. Kim's eyes snapped to her. "What did you say?" "The Lazarus Protocol," she repeated, louder this time. "My brother worked in naval intelligence. He mentioned it once, said it was the Sleeping Dragon insurance policy." "That's classified information," Kim said sharply, but there was a new intensity in his eyes. "How much do you know?" Jisoo swallowed hard. "Not much." Just that humanity has a hidden fleet, ships that don't appear in any public registry, military vessels designed for one purpose. Day-Wan looked between them, confused. What are you talking about? Earth's military fleet is primarily defensive. The Galactic Accords restrict The Accords restrict what we acknowledge publicly, Kim cut in. But humanity didn't evolve on a Class 12 death world without developing a survival instinct. He moved to the command console and entered a complex series of codes. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a sealed compartment containing a small black device with a single red button protected by a clear cover. Every colonial outpost has one of these, Kim explained. Direct quantum link to hidden military installations throughout human space. One signal activates everything. Is this legal? Dai-Wan asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Legal became irrelevant the moment the Arvani decided to wipe us out, Kim replied darkly. Jisoo stared at the device. Why keep such a fleet secret? If we had this kind of firepower, why hide it? Kim's expression was grim. Because the rest of the galaxy fears us enough already. Humans evolved on a planet that should have killed us 1,000 times over. Our bones are denser, our muscles stronger, our bodies more resilient to toxins and radiation than most sentient species. We can survive in environments that would kill other species in minutes. He gestured toward the barren landscape outside. This colony exists on a world that would be lethal to most of our galactic neighbors without extensive protective equipment. We're Deathworlders, Jisoo, the only Class 12 species to achieve space travel. And the Arvani know this, Dai-Wan said, understanding dawning on his face. That's why they struck first. They see us as a threat they believe they can eliminate before it fully emerges, Kim confirmed. They've only encountered our diplomats, our scientists, our merchants. They've never seen what humans designed for war can do. He flipped open the protective cover over the red button. His hand hovered there, hesitating. Once I activate the Lazarus protocol, there's no going back, he said quietly. It will wake every hidden military installation, every cloaked warship, every black site weapons platform we've built over the past century. Jisoo looked at the screen once more, at the frozen image of Earth's defense station breaking apart under alien weapons fire. Earth is dying, Commander, she said quietly. Make the call. Kim's finger descended on the button. A soft beep acknowledged the command, followed by a synthesized voice. Lazarus protocol activated. Authentication accepted. The fleet awakens. Across human space, hidden doors were opening, and humanity's darkest weapons were stirring to life. The red emergency lights flickered to life throughout TRNINUS station, accompanied by a low, pulsing alarm that hadn't sounded in 15 years. Admiral Eunji Choi was in the middle of her daily swim when the alert reached her. She didn't bother changing out of her wet swimsuit, instead grabbing a station robe and sprinting barefoot through the corridors toward the command center. Status report, she demanded, water still dripping from her short silver hair as she burst through the doors. Her executive officer, Captain Min Ho-baek, looked up from his console with wide eyes. The Lazarus protocol has been activated, Admiral. Authentication codes verified came from Proxima Centauri II. Eunji felt her heart skip a beat. After 15 years of waiting, of watching, of preparing, it had finally happened. Someone had attacked Earth badly enough to trigger the emergency response. Show me the data, she ordered, moving to the central command table where holographic displays sprang to life. The images were fragmented and incomplete, long-range scans showing multiple Arvani warships in Earth orbit, atmospheric entry points over major population centers, defense stations reduced to debris clouds. She could see that Earth's military had fought back, but the attack had been too sudden, too overwhelming. The Arvani, she said, her voice barely a whisper. They finally made their move. Min-ho nodded grimly. First reports indicate simultaneous strikes against all major Earth cities and orbital facilities. Civilian casualties are. He swallowed hard. Extensive. Eunji straightened her back, her wet swimsuit forgotten beneath the robe. At 62, she still maintained the rigid posture and hardened physique that had carried her through 30 years of naval service before her retirement to this secret post. "How many colony outposts have reported in?" she asked. "7 so far," Minho replied. "More reports coming in every minute. The Arvani appear to be systematically targeting all known human settlements." Eunji's eyes narrowed. "They think they know where all our people are. That's their first mistake." She turned to address the command center staff, all of whom had been living in hiding for years, maintaining this secret facility at the edge of the solar system. Terminus Station existed in no official record, its existence known only to a select few in Earth's highest military circles. "This is not a drill," she announced, her voice calm but carrying an edge of steel. "Initiate full activation sequence. Wake the fleet." The command center erupted into focused activity. Officers rushed to stations, technicians began powering up long-dormant systems, and deep within the station's massive hangars, automatic processes began bringing warships out of cold storage. Eunji stripped off her robe and pulled on the duty uniform that Minho had thoughtfully brought for her. As she dressed, she watched the main display as it showed the docking clamps releasing from the crown jewel of humanity's hidden fleet, the HSS Nemesis. The massive dreadnought had never flown in combat. In fact, it had never left the protective embrace of Terminus Station. Built in sections and assembled in secret, it represented technology that humanity had publicly claimed was decades beyond their capability. Its sleek, dark hull absorbed rather than reflected light, making it nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Along its kilometer-long frame, weapon ports were opening, revealing systems that would make any galactic power reconsider their assessment of human military potential. "The Nemesis is reporting all systems operational," Minho said with poorly concealed awe. "Engines at standby. Weapons systems initializing." Eunji nodded and fastened the last button on her uniform jacket. "And the rest of the fleet? Waking up as we speak. The automated systems are bringing everything online. Current status shows 97% of vessels responding to activation codes." She allowed herself a small, grim smile. 15 years of waiting, and only 3% attrition. Our engineers should be proud. Around the Nemesis, other ships were stirring to life. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and specialized assault craft, all bearing the angular predatory design that marked them as vessels built for combat rather than exploration or diplomacy. The official human fleet, the one known to the galactic community, featured rounded, welcoming lines and obvious science and communication arrays. These ships had no such pretense. Eunji walked to the massive viewports overlooking the main hangar. The sight of the awakening armada filled her with a complex mixture of pride and sorrow. Every ship represented countless hours of secret labor, enormous resources diverted through shell companies and black budgets, all to create a fleet that humanity hoped would never be needed. But humans had evolved on a world that taught harsh lessons about survival. Hope for peace, prepare for war. This philosophy was encoded in their DNA after millions of years of fighting to survive on a planet that seemed determined to kill them. "The last time I commanded a true warship was during the Proxima border skirmish," Eunji said quietly to Minho, who had joined her at the viewport. "The treaty that followed established our peaceful exploration mandate. The galactic community was so relieved that the violent humans had finally decided to set aside their warlike ways." Minho nodded, the perfect cover for building all of this. "We knew someday one of them would decide we were too dangerous to let live," she continued. "Humans adapt too quickly. We're too resilient, too stubborn. The galaxy calls Earth a death world for a reason, but they don't truly understand what that means." She turned away from the viewport and headed toward the docking tube that would take her to the Nemesis. "It means we survived millions of years of evolution on a planet that tried to kill us with everything from microscopic parasites to apex predators to natural disasters. It means we don't go down easily." As she walked, crew members fell in behind her, officers and specialists who had lived in isolation for years, waiting for this day. "Admiral on deck," someone shouted as Unji stepped onto the bridge of the Nemesis for the first time. The crew, many of whom she had personally selected and trained, snapped to attention. She took a moment to absorb the scene: the gleaming consoles, the massive tactical displays, the weapons control stations. This wasn't the bridge of an exploration vessel or a diplomatic ship. This was a command center designed for war. "Status report," she demanded, striding to the captain's chair. "All systems online, Admiral," her XO replied. "The fleet reports ready status at 97%. Weapons systems charged. Quantum shields at maximum capacity." Through the viewports, Eunji could see the rest of the armada stirring to life. Dark, angular ships designed for a single purpose. Not exploration, not diplomacy. "Set course for Earth," she ordered, her voice steady. It's time the Arvani learned what it means to attack a species that evolved on a death world. Supreme Commander Rill stood before the massive holographic display, admiring the progress reports from Earth. The human homeworld had fallen more easily than expected. Their orbital defenses had crumbled within hours, and ground resistance was minimal against Arvani shock troops. The operation was proceeding with textbook efficiency. "Another population center neutralized," reported Sub-Commander Tark, updating the display to show a sprawling human city now engulfed in flames. "Resistance in this sector has been eliminated." Rill clicked his mandibles with satisfaction. His carapace gleamed under the bright lights of Tanis Station's command center, the nerve center of Arvani military operations. The station orbited the collective's homeworld, a testament to Arvani architectural and engineering superiority, with its sweeping crystalline structures and perfect geometric precision. "Excellent," Rill said. The Council's decision was correct. These humans posed too great a potential threat to allow their continued expansion. The Arvani had spent decades studying humanity. They had cataloged human biological capabilities, documented their alarming adaptability, and tracked their technological progress. The conclusion had been unanimous among the Arvani High Council: humans were developing too rapidly. Their remarkable ability to survive in hostile environments, combined with their aggressive expansion tendencies, represented an existential threat to galactic stability. The human colonies on Mars and Europa are also reporting complete neutralization. Tark added, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the holographic imagery. Rill was about to respond when a junior sensor officer rushed into the command center, his normally measured Arvani composure visibly shaken. "Supreme Commander," the officer said, "we're detecting multiple unknown vessels entering the Tanis system." Rill turned sharply. "Specifics: 73 capital ships. Configuration unknown," the officer reported, bringing up the sensor data on a secondary display. "They're not in our database of known vessel types." "Impossible," Rill hissed, mandibles clicking in agitation. "The humans have no military presence in this sector." He studied the approaching formation with growing concern. "Their fleet was neutralized at Earth. We confirmed the destruction of all their major military vessels." "Sir," his aide said hesitantly, "these ships don't match any known human military design." The command center grew quiet as the implications sank in. The Arvani collective had spent years gathering intelligence on human military capabilities. They had cataloged every warship, monitored every shipyard, and tracked every naval movement. Their attack on Earth had been precisely calculated to eliminate humanity's entire defensive capability in a single overwhelming strike. Could they be from another species? Tark suggested. Perhaps allies of the humans. Rill shook his head. Humans have no formal military alliances. Their diplomatic relations with other spacefaring species are strictly commercial and scientific. The sensor officer's voice became more urgent. "Sir, the vessels are accelerating. Current trajectory puts them on an intercept course with Tanis Station. Estimated arrival in 17 minutes. Raise shields," Rill ordered. Alert the defense fleet. Sir, Tark interjected, our main battle fleet is still deployed at Earth. We have only the Home Guard squadron here, 12 cruisers, and their support vessels. Rill's compound eyes narrowed. This development made no tactical sense. The humans' military capacity had been thoroughly assessed and neutralized. These ships couldn't exist, and yet the sensors clearly showed them approaching, their formation tight and purposeful. Open a communication channel, he commanded. Let's see who dares to threaten the Arvani collective. Before his communications officer could comply, every screen in the command center flickered and went blank. The station's internal systems had been overridden by an external signal. Rill felt his inner membranes constrict with the unfamiliar sensation of fear. The screens came back to life simultaneously, all showing the same image. A human female, her silver hair cut short in a military style, her aged face bearing the lines of experience. She wore a dark uniform, unlike any in the Arvani database of human military apparel. This is Admiral Yunji Choi of the Human Defense Fleet, the woman said, her voice calm and measured, betraying no emotion. Your unprovoked attack on Earth has triggered the Lazarus Protocol. You believe you were exterminating a defenseless species. That was your first mistake. Rill stepped forward, his chitinous limbs clicking against the polished floor. I am Supreme Commander Rill of the Arvani Collective. Your people have been judged a terminal threat to galactic stability. The High Council's decision is final and irreversible. The human admiral's expression didn't change. You made your decision based on incomplete information, Commander. The fleet you're detecting represents a military capacity we've kept hidden for generations. What you destroyed at Earth was our public force, a mere fraction of our true capability. Murmurs of alarm spread through the command center. Tark hurriedly consulted the tactical display. Sir, we're analyzing their weapons signatures now. The energy readings are concerning. Admiral Choi continued. Humanity evolved on what your scientists classify as a Class 12 death world. Do you understand what that means, Commander? It means we survived a planet that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We endured predators, diseases, natural disasters, and environmental extremes that would exterminate most sentient species. She leaned closer to the camera. We didn't develop our technology to explore the stars. Commander, we built it to survive. Everything that evolution threw at us, all of it made us stronger, more resilient, more deadly. Rill felt his confidence wavering. Our analysis of human military capability was thorough. These ships cannot exist. Yet here we are, Choi replied simply. You assessed what we wanted you to see. For centuries, humanity has hidden its true military potential behind a facade of scientific curiosity and diplomatic openness. We hoped we would never need to reveal ourselves this way. The censor officer interrupted with growing panic. Supreme Commander, we're detecting unusual energy signatures from the human vessels. Their weapon systems are unlike anything in our records. On the screen, Admiral Choi's expression hardened slightly. I'm transmitting coordinates to you now. These are the locations of human civilian evacuation ships that escaped Earth. Your forces will allow them safe passage out of the combat zone. You are in no position to make demands, Rill countered, though his voice lacked conviction. This is not a negotiation, Commander. It is the only warning you will receive. Her eyes, dark and unblinking, seemed to look through Rill rather than at him. You have 30 minutes to withdraw all Arvani forces from Earth and human colonial worlds. After that, we will respond with appropriate force. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. For a species that prided itself on logical precision and careful planning, this development was beyond comprehension. Their entire military strategy against humanity had been based on intelligence that now appeared catastrophically incomplete. Orders, Supreme Commander, Tark asked, his voice unnaturally high. Rill stared at the tactical display, watching as the human fleet continued its methodical approach. 73 capital ships of unknown design and capability, appearing from nowhere to challenge the might of the Arvani collective. It defied all strategic logic. "Send word to our forces at Earth," Rill finally said. "Tell them." He hesitated, the words foreign to his mandibles. "Tell them to prepare for a potential tactical withdrawal." As his officers rushed to comply, Rill gazed at the approaching fleet, a growing sense of dread settling over him. The collective had struck at humanity, believing they were preventing a future threat. Instead, they had awakened something that had been hiding in plain sight all along. The humans hadn't been defenseless. They had been waiting. The Arvani battle cruiser Relentless Victory shuddered as another explosion tore through its lower decks. Commander Traz stumbled, his forelimbs struggling to maintain balance as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Warning klaxons blared throughout the ship while emergency lighting cast everything in a blood-red glow. "Status report," he demanded, his mandibles clicking in agitation. His second-in-command looked up from a damaged console. "Hull breaches on decks 6 through 9. We've lost primary weapons control. Engineering reports drive core instability." Travis couldn't comprehend how quickly the battle had turned against them. Just hours ago, the Arvani fleet had been systematically purging the human homeworld, meeting only token resistance. Then these unknown human warships had appeared, and everything had fallen into chaos. "Enemy boarding craft detected," the security officer announced, her voice trembling. "Multiple hull breaches. They're cutting through the starboard airlocks." Traz felt cold dread wash over him. The humans were supposed to be technologically inferior, their military capabilities thoroughly documented and accounted for in the Arvani attack plans. Instead, they were facing weapons and ships that existed in no intelligence report. "Seal all bulkheads," he ordered. "Deploy security teams tow." A deafening explosion cut him off as the bridge doors blew inward with terrifying force. Through the smoke and debris came figures that seemed more machine than organic, human soldiers encased in powered armor that made them tower over the Arvani crew. Their helmets featured glowing sensor arrays where eyes should be, giving them an inhuman, predatory appearance. The lead figure stepped forward, the deck plates groaning under the weight of the armor. The helmet retracted, revealing the face of Commander Junho Lee. Unlike the Arvani, whose chitinous bodies evolved on a low-gravity world, Lee's frame had been forged on Earth's crushing pull, a Class 12 Deathworld that produced organisms built to survive impossible odds. "Surrender your vessel," Lee stated simply, his voice carrying no emotion, no urgency, just the calm certainty of a predator who knows its prey is cornered. Traz drew his sidearm, a desperate gesture that felt necessary despite its futility. The weapon discharge, the energy bolt striking Lee's armor and dissipating harmlessly across its surface. Lee didn't even flinch. With speed that seemed impossible for something so large, he crossed the distance between them and lifted Traz by his throat. The Arvani commander felt his exoskeleton creak under the pressure. "Wrong answer," Lee said quietly, before tossing Traz aside like a discarded toy. The humans moved through the bridge with methodical precision, securing Arvani crew members and accessing ship systems. They didn't kill unnecessarily, but any resistance was met with overwhelming force. Through the viewport, Traz could see the battle unfolding across space, the ordered Arvani formation now scattered and broken, individual ships trying desperately to escape the human onslaught. Ships that had never existed in any intelligence report were tearing through the Arvani fleet like predators through a herd. On the bridge of the HSS Nemesis, Admiral Yunji Choi stood perfectly still, hands clasped behind her back as she watched the tactical display. The holographic projection showed the battle in real time. Human ships represented by blue markers, Arvani forces in red. The red markers were blinking out one by one. Boarding teams report success across all targeted vessels. Lieutenant Haenul Kang reported from the tactical station. Commander Lee has secured the Arvani flagship. Choi nodded, her face betraying no emotion. At 62, She had spent more than half her life preparing for a day she hoped would never come. The Lazarus Protocol had been humanity's insurance policy, a hidden fleet, advanced weapon systems, and military capabilities kept secret from the galactic community. The Arvani Secondary Fleet is attempting to regroup at their fallback position. Kang continued, highlighting a region of space where surviving enemy vessels were converging. They're forming a defensive perimeter around their command base. Denied, Choi replied coldly. Deploy the Cerberus units. Kang transmitted the orders, and throughout the battlefield, specialized human vessels moved into position. Their hulls split open like blooming flowers, releasing swarms of autonomous combat drones. Technology the galactic community believed was centuries beyond human capability. The drones moved like a coordinated flock of birds, thousands of individual units functioning as a single organism. They surrounded Arvani ships, targeting engines, weapons, and communication systems with surgical precision. From the captured Arvani flagship, Commander Lee transmitted live footage to the Nemesis. The images showed Arvani crew members watching in horror as their reinforcements were systematically disabled by technology they couldn't comprehend. Tell me, Lee asked the captive Arvani commander, did your intelligence reports mention our Cerberus program? Or were you told we were still struggling with basic AI integration? The Arvani commander didn't respond, his compound eyes fixed on the display showing his fleet's destruction. In the cramped confines of Assault Shuttle Delta 9, Marine Surgeon Mei Jin-Yu checked her squad's equipment one final time. Their target was an Arvani carrier that had survived the initial assault and was now trying to launch fighter craft. Remember your training, she told the 5 soldiers under her command. Their exoskeletons are tough but brittle at the joints. Their ships are designed for efficiency, not internal defense. They have no concept of close-quarters combat. The soldiers nodded, their faces hidden behind the polarized visors of their combat helmets. Like all human Marines, they had been selected for their physical capabilities and enhanced through both training and technology. The powered armor they wore multiplied their already considerable strength, while integrated medical systems could keep them fighting through injuries that would incapacitate unaugmented soldiers. 30 seconds to breach, announced the pilot. Mei Jin felt the familiar calm settle over her as the shuttle aligned with the Arvani vessel. Humans had been fighting and surviving against impossible odds since they first evolved on their deadly homeworld. The Arvani had studied human biology and technology, but had fundamentally misunderstood human psychology. They didn't understand what it meant to evolve on a world that constantly tried to kill you. 10 seconds. The squad activated their magnetic boots and readied their weapons. Unlike the energy weapons favored by most galactic species, human Marines carried railguns, brutally efficient weapons that fired hypervelocity projectiles, taking advantage of humanity's natural tolerance for recoil. Breaching now. The shuttle's front section transformed into a cutting apparatus that sliced through the Arvani hull. Emergency force fields contained the atmosphere as the Marines pushed forward into the alien ship. They met resistance immediately, Arvani security forces armed with energy weapons and positioned behind makeshift barricades. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a strong defensive position, but the Arvani had evolved on a world with lower gravity and fewer predators. Their reflexes were simply no match for humans born on Earth. Mei Jin moved with practiced efficiency, her armor systems working in perfect harmony with her body's movements. What seemed like suicidal tactics to the Arvani, charging directly into enemy fire, were calculated risks to humans accustomed to surviving against overwhelming odds. The fight was over in minutes. The Arvani carrier, with its complement of over 2,000 crew members, fell to 6 human Marines without a single human casualty. As Mei Jin secured the ship's bridge, she opened a channel to the Nemesis. Admiral, Delta 9 reporting. Carrier secured, requesting instructions for prisoners. On the main view screen, she could see the battle continuing to unfold. The Arvani fleet, what remained of it, was no longer fighting to win. They were fighting to survive. The Grand Assembly Hall on Harmony was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations sat in concentric rings around the central floor, species that had evolved across vastly different environments, some breathing methane, others silicon-based life forms, all gathered in their own atmospheric bubbles to witness a historic moment. 3 weeks had passed since the human counterattack had systematically dismantled the Arvani collective's military might. 3 weeks since the galaxy had discovered that humans had been hiding their true capabilities for centuries. Admiral Yunji Choi stood perfectly straight, her dress uniform adorned with medals that had never before been worn in public. At her side, Du Yunbai represented what remained of Earth's diplomatic corps. His left arm ended in a prosthetic hand, a reminder of how close humanity had come to extinction. Across the chamber floor stood the Arvani delegation. Once proud leaders of the largest territory in the galactic arm, they now appeared diminished. Supreme Commander Ril's carapace had lost its shine, his compound eyes dulled by defeat. We gather today to witness the formal conclusion of hostilities between humanity and the Arvani collective, announced the Harmony Mediator, a neural-linked AI that served as the neutral world's voice. Both parties have agreed to the terms discussed in preliminary negotiations. Du Yun stepped forward, his voice clear and measured. Humanity accepts the unconditional surrender of the Arvani collective, he announced. We require full reparations for Earth's reconstruction, the demilitarization of all Arvani warships, and the establishment of human oversight in Arvani territory for a period of 50 standard years. A murmur ran through the assembly. The terms were harsh but not unexpected given the scale of the Arvani assault on Earth. What surprised many was the absence of territorial demands. Humans could have claimed Arvani worlds as conquest rights under galactic law. Supreme Commander Ril stepped forward, his movements stiff. The collective accepts these terms, he said, mandibles clicking softly. We acknowledge our grievous error in judgment and the criminal nature of our unprovoked attack. The surrender documents materialized as holographic text between the two delegations. Both leaders pressed their hands, or in Ril's case, appendages, to the designated areas, and the agreement was sealed. But Admiral Choi wasn't finished. She stepped forward, her eyes sweeping across the assembled representatives. For centuries, humanity has hidden its military capabilities, she began. We presented ourselves as eager explorers and traders, while concealing the adaptations that allowed us to survive our homeworld. Today, I want to address the questions I see in all your eyes. Why the deception? What are human intentions now? The chamber fell silent. Every species present had been reevaluating their assessment of humanity over the past 3 weeks as reports filtered in about the hidden fleet, the advanced weapons, the combat capabilities of human soldiers. Humans evolved on what you classify as a Class 12 death world, Choi continued. Earth tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, extreme weather. We survived it all. This forged us into something unique among spacefaring civilizations, a species that expects adversity and prepares for worst-case scenarios. She gestured toward the Arvani delegation. The collective attacked because they feared what we might become. Their error wasn't in identifying us as dangerous. It was in believing we weren't dangerous yet. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But I want to be clear about one thing, Choi said, her voice softening slightly. Humanity chose peace. We could have revealed our capabilities at first contact. We could have used our hidden fleet to carve out an empire. Instead, we chose to integrate peacefully into the galactic community, to trade and share knowledge. She looked directly at the Rixian ambassador, whose species had been the first to contact Earth nearly a century ago. We wanted to be judged by our actions, not feared for our potential. That remains our position today. Do Yun stepped forward again. Earth has suffered greatly. Billions of lives were lost in the Arvani attack. But we will rebuild, and we invite the galactic community to join us in creating stronger bonds of trust and cooperation. As the formal proceedings concluded, the assembled representatives broke into smaller groups, urgent discussions breaking out in dozens of languages. The galaxy was recalibrating its understanding of the curious bipeds from the spiral arm's edge. Humans had revealed themselves not as the eager, somewhat naive newcomers most had believed them to be, but as the galaxy's apex predators, a species that had concealed not weakness, but overwhelming strength. Later that evening, Admiral Choi stood on the observation deck of the Nemesis, which orbited Harmony during the negotiations. The ship's massive viewports showed both the planet below and the stars beyond. Earth was not visible from here. It was thousands of light years away, wounded but enduring. The door slid open, and Jisoo Park entered hesitantly. The communications officer from Proxima Centauri II had been transferred to the Nemesis following the colony's evacuation. It was her distress call that had awakened the fleet. "Admiral," she said, offering a salute. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." Choi waved away the formality. "Not at all. I was just thinking about today's events." Jisoo moved to stand beside her at the viewport. Below them, Harmony gleamed like a jewel, its cities tracing patterns of light across the night side. "The surrender is official," Jisoo said. "The news feeds are calling it the dawn of a new era in galactic politics." Choi nodded. "Everything has changed. We can't go back to hiding what we are." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, two humans contemplating the vast cosmos that had suddenly become more complicated. Jisoo had lost family on Earth during the attack. Choi had lost friends. Every human had lost something. Their anonymity at the very least, their loved ones at worst. "Will Earth ever truly recover?" Jisoo asked softly. Choi's reflection in the viewport showed a slight smile forming on her weathered face. "We're Deathworlders, Jisoo. Surviving impossible odds is what we do best." She turned from the stars to face the younger woman. "Our cities can be rebuilt. Our populations will recover. But we'll never again have the luxury of being underestimated." "Is that such a bad thing?" Jisoo asked. "The deception is what led to the Arvani attack. They struck because they were afraid of what they didn't understand." Choi considered this. "Perhaps, but now we face a different challenge. The galaxy fears us for what they do understand." On a tactical display near the viewport, blue dots represented human ships spreading throughout nearby systems, protecting surviving colonies, escorting relief supplies, enforcing the terms of surrender. The hidden fleet had emerged from shadow, and there was no going back. "Commander Kim made the right call," Jisoo said, thinking back to that terrible moment on Proxima Centauri II when he had activated the Lazarus protocol. If he had hesitated, Earth might have been lost completely. Choi finished. "Instead, we've shown the galaxy what humans are truly capable of. For better or worse, they'll never look at us the same way again." As if to emphasize her point, a message alert chimed softly. 3 more species had requested diplomatic meetings with humanity. Former allies of the Arvani, now scrambling to establish better relations with the suddenly formidable humans. "We have much work to do," Choi said, straightening her uniform. "Earth needs us. Our colonies need protection. And the galaxy needs to understand that while we are dangerous, we still desire peace." Jisoo nodded, her posture unconsciously mirroring the Admiral's. "They attacked us because they feared what we might become. We'll show them what we actually are instead." Beyond the viewports, stars glittered like possibilities. A billion worlds where humanity might yet find friends or foes. The galaxy had awakened the sleeping giants of Earth. Now it would have to live with them.